And so we welcome you to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, December the 29th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And once again, the Course in Miracles lesson has been the same one every day this week, and it is this holy instant would I give to you, be you in charge, for I would follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace. And the part that I looked up today, it says the holy instant can also be understood as a process that repeats constantly throughout our lives. The entire spiritual journey or atonement process is one of acknowledging and receiving the power of the holy instant. Put simply, in every moment of every day, you have the power to choose love or to choose fear. You have the power to surrender to joy or to continue to struggle. So live in that holy instant. And welcome, Michael.
Yay. So welcome, everybody, and thank you, dear heart. We are honored and delighted that we get to move forward and continue in this conversation, and are delighted that you've chosen to join us. Getting close to the end of what our culture fantasizes as a year, something a great fantasy we've created. Nothing factual about it, but it's one that works, and it can be a good idea every once in a while to really recognize when we're engaging in a fantasy. And there are fantasies like, we call this date, this time, we have this country and that country and that country. All fantasies made up by the mind, but they're things that kind of work. And then we live in fantasies that are not really very productive, and they're the situations where forgiveness becomes worthwhile, because every fantasy that we hold, that is, we hold a perceptual construct generated that is not accurate about the actual events of our lives, we create an energy within our tissue structure that ends up resulting in what we call dis-ease. A good analogy is, imagine that you've got a newspaper, and everything that the newspaper writes that is published in the newspaper has an impact on the functioning of their computers. Write things based in fear and sadness and grief and anger and rage and pain and drama and trauma, and all that energy destroys the hard drive of the computer of the newspaper office. Those things that are written in joy and aliveness and creativity and wonderment and the presence of love upgrade the computer. How long would the average computer last in the average newspaper office? Not very long. And, the fact is we have an energy system, and, from my education, if I go back to my early education in the world of electronics and physics, they tell us that energy is the only thing that exists, and that energy is eternal, can neither be created nor destroyed. Kind of a similar creation story to what the theologians have told us. Different words for the main characters, but same principle. And if, in fact, only energy exists, and if, in fact, energy is eternal, then we must be energy, we must be eternal. Why do we expect to die? Why do we have a fantasy called death? And it's time for us to put it away. Well, unlike the newspaper office where what's written in the computer doesn't impact the quality of or the function of the computer, that's not true about our human physiology. Everything we engage in. It's interesting, if you go to the opening words in the book of John, where we're told it said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. In fact, it doesn't say that. It says, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. And the mind energy that you engage in has a quality, and that quality either supports and builds up the functioning of your energy system, quote unquote, your hard drive, your multi-generational body-mind unit, or it has a quality of disintegration. which creates the tearing down of that multi-generational database called a body-mind unit. And it's up to us to choose to put away that which is based in hostility or fear. And when we confront a situation that resonates hostility or fear in us, to own that hostility or fear, and to understand that there is a technology, there is a tool for removing hostility and fear from human physiology. There's a tool for removing those energetic patterns from our structures, whether it's in our genes or whether it's just in our mental awareness, our minds, which function through every cell in the so-called body. When we refuse, when we give up functioning out of those energetic patterns that are of a disintegrative nature, those energetic patterns based in hostility or fear, then we are restored to the truth of who we are. And being restored to the truth of who we are, this energy system begins to function as it's designed. Well, it's never changed. It's always functioned the way it's designed to function. It's designed to warn us when we engage in disintegrative mind energy with some form of pain or trauma that we're off base. It's kind of like the alarm system. Unfortunately, most people, when the internal alarm of pain goes off, point their finger at somebody down the road and say, "You made me mad, you made me sad, you hurt me." And that would be kind of like, the fire alarm cancels the shot, goes off in your house, and you call the fire trucks and send them to the guy down the block. It's not going to do much good. If hostility or fear is moving within you, then there's an energetic pattern, which is time to be forgiven. And recognizing that the word forgive has nothing to do with what 99.9% of the world talks about. I'm going to let you off the hook for what's moving inside of me. But rather, that forgiveness is the tool with which you address, access, and remove those energetic patterns based in hostility or fear. In a family system, there is no hostility or fear within a household unless there are people in the household that bring hostility or fear into the household. There's no, "You made me mad, you made me sad, you made me afraid." There's just mad, sad, and afraid that are alarms that say, "Oh, I'm carrying an energy within me." And you'll notice that life is custom designed to show you what you're holding on to that is out of harmony, that is out of integrity with love. And when that alarm goes off, most people have a story. They go into resistance to ownership. It's interesting, in the Aramaic language, the word Satan is not the dude with the red suit, the tail, and the pitchfork of popular lore, of Greek lore, but rather Satan quite literally is defined as the resistor, one who misleads. And you'll notice the average person, when their hostility or fear is activated, if you invite them to be responsible for their hostility or fear, they'll go into resistance. And the resistance will go something like, no, that's not mine, that's got nothing, it's not my fault I'm doing that. So there's the resistance. And then the second half of the definition of Satan in Aramaic, they're misled. And then they'll start to tell you, they'll start to describe the perceptual construct that their mind is generating out of the dissociated hostility or fear that's been resonated in them. And sadly, most people live trapped in Satan most of their lives. Our objective with this work is to share a set of tools with which to remove all fear, hostility, rage, guilt, grief, drama, and trauma. And you'll notice that those things never come up in you, or unless you're just a generally miserable person, they never come up in you unless there's someone who is not fulfilling a goal that you hold for them. Now, you could just as easily, when someone's not fulfilling a goal that you hold for them, respond from a connected space of love and aliveness rather than from a disconnected space of hostility and fear. So the objective in the long haul of this work is to make available a set of tools with which each person progressively literally removes the very capacity for any form of hostility or fear, and simply speaks from a mind connected to active present love. Imagine the day that 7.5 billion people wake up realizing, number one, who they are, that they are literally beings created of love, recognize what each other person is, literally a being made of love, perhaps locked into some form of hostility or fear, but lacking that hostility or fear within oneself, there's no capacity to even generate that in interaction with others. But when interacting with another who's not fulfilling a goal, and this is where the core understanding of forgiveness lies, is that when I load a goal in my mind, that goal recruits into activity the data that is going to become my perceptual construct. If I load a goal that causes my mind to utilize some form of hostility or fear, then my perceptual construct will be constructed from that hostility or fear. And seeing as how it will be a picture of the person I hold the goal for, I'll think that they're the reason why I'm in pain or trauma. I'm only in pain or trauma ever. I mean, nobody's ever been angry with another person. Nobody's ever been afraid of another person. None of that is true. That's all a lie. If someone's angry with another person, they're angry because there's anger in them. If someone's sad about an event that happens, they're sad about the event that happens because there's sadness in them. If someone has fear and they say, oh, I'm so afraid of that, they just lied to themselves. They're in fear because there's fear in them. What if the project became for each of us to confront and remove all hostility and fear, and to live in relationship as love with love, even when somebody isn't fulfilling our goals? Well, but Michael comes out of that first century Aramaic language in the words of the man named Yeshua. If you're not using the forgiveness process yet, we invite you to go to our website, whyagain.org. You can access the worksheet there. You can print it off on your own printer from the website. It's free. Actually, there's several different versions of the worksheet there for you to test out. Different people find the variety of worksheets to be effective for them to rotate from one worksheet to another. Slight variations on the theme. You can do the worksheet live right there on the website. And or you can go to your app store on your phone and type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. When you do that, you'll be looking at the world's first and only forgiveness app. You can engage in the forgiveness process right there on your phone, the worksheet. There are actually two different versions that Jeannie's put into the app. There's one for educating children on forgiveness. It's called the Drag-On Klingon game. There are copies of The Commitment from Healing Through Relationships for children, for adults, first person, second person, business commitment. It's all in the app. There's a place in the app that if you have a question, you can ask. Instantly, right there, just click a button, ask your question, click send, and Jeannie will receive that and will address your question on the air, and then we'll feed back to you the data for the show where we answer the question. You can access all of our worksheets, many videos, meditation CD, wellness to stillness, all those things are available in the app. And so you can download that free. It's a totally private app. We specifically designed it so that there are as few permissions required as possible. In fact, to use the app, it only asks one thing, and that is to be able to use the internet. And we specifically designed it that way so that, people do a lot of work with very, very private issues. And so you can rest assured that it is private, that the only one who has access to it is you. When you complete doing a worksheet, if you choose to, you can print it. And of course, to print it, you have to save it somewhere. It's going to ask permission to save to your drive, but otherwise we don't ask for any permissions. So you can be assured that the app is very private. So just type in the words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness in your app store, download the app, and go to work with forgiveness. And then, of course, here we are 5 days a week. And this conversation has been going on for 10 years plus. Actually, I guess we're just heading into the 11th year now. So it's kind of like been a 10-year workshop on forgiveness. And so if we can support you in any way, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, the call-in number is 563-999-3581. 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show. And then if you have a question, you push 1. That will raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will introduce you by your area code, and we will be having a conversation. And we would love to support you in putting these tools to work. That's our objective in doing this show. And I'm going to turn to the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? We've taken a year to read through it. I've been just delighted to have the opportunity to go back and review the book, which I wrote over a quarter of a century ago. And our character, Richard, has been doing a worksheet, this last chapter, chapter 24, which is entitled Work It Out with Your Best Friend. And that comes from the idea we actually had a client back several years ago who had a child, and they fed back to us that the worksheet, their child had said that the worksheet was their best friend. And so that's how this chapter became named. And Richard, the character in the book, has been stepping up to the plate and processing, doing a lot of questioning and rebuilding of his understanding of life. He's moving through a situation where he had gotten lost in resentment with his sister, which had diffused into his relationships with women, and he's realizing how that's impacted his life. Richard's asked the question, well, what can I do? How can I support this work? And our offering has been pass it on. Give it to someone else. And so passing on the work is number one request we have of people. And I offer to Richard the thought, we're on the bottom of 179 if you're following in the book. I believe a precious opportunity was missed 2,000 years ago to heal a suffering, wounded humanity. It was our choice to regain our sanity, our dignity, and to function again as human beings. Recall that honoring truth is the healer of blockage of truth. If you're reading along with me, by the way, I've changed the wording there because we've had an upgrade in understanding of that word love. Back when I was writing the book, I used the word love as most of the culture does. Oh, well, it represents, something we do to each other, something about, positive regard for another or what have you. And then realizing that that word has been misused, love is not something we do to each other. Nobody's ever loved you. Nobody's ever going to love you. You've never loved anybody. That's all a falsity. Love is a state of being. It describes who we are. If we think it's something we can do, then we lose awareness. We block awareness of who we are. And so in that particular sentence, I've shifted the wording to, it is honoring truth, and that heals blockage of truth. And I offer to Richard the thought, I trust its transforming power. I believe that each mind wants to and will shift to the most rewarding way of living possible once the possible is seen. The question is, who will break through to the critical mass? Who will make the possible available to humanity? The following story by an unknown author says it all. Will you make the difference? Tell me the weight of a snowflake, a hawk asked a wild dove. Nothing more than nothing was the answer. In that case, I must tell you a marvelous story, said the hawk. I sat on the branch of a fir, close to its trunk. It began to snow. Not heavily, not a raging blizzard, no, just like in a dream without any violence. Since I had nothing better to do, I counted the snowflakes settling on the twigs and needles of my branch. The number was exactly 3,741,952 when the next snowflake dropped onto the branch. Nothing more than nothing, as you say. And the branch broke off. Having said that, the hawk flew away. The dove, since Noah's time an authority on peace, thought about the story for a while and finally said with resolve, perhaps only one person's voice is lacking for peace to come about in the world. Richard, the next time someone resonates a reality less than love in your mind, will you be a voice for peace? And we'll save the epilogue for tomorrow. And Ms. Jeanie, do we have anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up or anybody in the chat room with a thought or a question for us?
It's all quiet. So if someone presses 1, we have 34 minutes. We have plenty of time for a discussion. Coming up for you here at the end of the year, we've got 2 more days after today. And this 2021 will move into 2022. Is there something we can do to support you?
What's on your mind if you're out there in listener land? The time for the dialogue or the monologue, is completed. Time for dialogue. What's on your mind? How can we support you? Any experiences you've had throughout the year working with these tools that might inspire someone if you share it with us? Push 1. Let's have a conversation about it. Any questions about the step-by-step forgiveness process, about why any particular step is done, why it's presented the way it's presented? Or any of the other tools. We've got many different worksheets on the website. They're all there, free and available, from communication tools to the commitment, healing through relationships, wide variety of tools. And if we can be of any support, I would love to hear someone's voice and have an interactive dialogue. How has your experience of using the tools throughout this year been? Anything to share with us?
With no hands up, share some of the expressions that we had with Aria over the past 2 days. Michael and I are well enough that we have started keeping Aria again. Monday was our first full day with her, and then we had her yesterday, and she's just been amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's like, we've been apart from her for 2 weeks with having gone through COVID, and we're so thankful for feeling good waking up in the morning. And having had the tweak that COVID gave us, it was actually a gift that we can both see as we've gone through it. Not one we'd probably choose again anytime soon, but just several things that it's like Arya's gone to a quantum leap. If you're not familiar with her granddaughter, she's been circling Earth now for 3 years and since August. So what, 5 months, 6 months?
4 months.
4 months. And she's just yesterday. It was in the 60s here. We went out to feed the worms in our worm bin. She likes to play with the worms, and the grass was wet, so we took her. She only had her socks on, and so I want to take my socks off. So I took her socks off. We both went out barefoot and came back in. I left her socks sitting on the front deck, and I said, "Well, here, I'll give you a little foot rub, so we'll dry your feet, and then we'll put your socks on." Okay. And she thanks me for the foot rub. "Oh, that feels good, Papa." And then as we walk in the house, she said, "Come on over here and you sit down, Papa. I'm going to give you a foot rub." So here she's at 3, giving me actually quite a proficient foot rub. It's something we've been doing with her since she was an infant, and it was the first time that she just, like, "Oh, well, I want to give you a foot rub now." It was just awesome. And one of the books that she got, we've shared with you before that she's right from the first time we started to talk about anatomy with her back several months ago. Or at least we thought she'd swallowed a button, and we ended up talking to her about, the button goes down your throat and it's your esophagus, and excuse me, somebody just dialed into my phone. And after we did that, one of the things she'd gotten for Christmas, I'd start to say, was a book on anatomy. And we had, when she swallowed this button, talked to her about where the button would go, and then we were watching her bowel movements for the button to come back up. And so she became very interested in the body. We had a set of anatomy cards, and I dug them out, and we showed her the esophagus and the stomach and all of that. And so she got a book laying all of that out. And yesterday, as Jeanie, we're kind of homeschooling her, and so she has Play-Doh, and she and Jeanie be of the body, the head, the eyes, the neck, the throat, the body, the lungs, so she went through and talked about, she got a piece of apple and put it in the Play-Doh character's mouth, and then the apple, and she explains at 3 that it goes down the esophagus and goes into the stomach, and then goes into the intestines, and the large intestine and the small intestine, and she likes to say, and then comes out the pooper. So she did that, and Jeanie, if you jump on her Facebook page, she put a video on it, and she made the lungs out of Play-Doh. And she said, "Well, what about that? What are they?" And totally silent. She doesn't say a word. But she reaches for her Play-Doh and picks out, just gets little pieces of red Play-Doh and puts them in the lungs. One of the things she enjoys doing is watching anatomy lessons of a cartoon character named Dr. Binox, who talks about the body. And one of the videos that she loves to watch is the one about the heart and the lungs. And it shows how the blood is turned blue and once the body's used it, it's withdrawn the oxygen from the red blood cells, and how those red blood cells then go into the lungs and pick up oxygen. So instead of answering that was the lungs, it was just like her answer was a nonverbal one. She took little tiny pieces of red Play-Doh and put them in the lungs for the red blood cells. Just to watch how this little mind is developing, and the presence of love that she is and that she holds, and realizing how important it is for us to do our job as grandparents for her, of really truly acknowledging her as, seeing her as love. And if something else comes up, to be the space of love for her, to demonstrate that space for her as she grows into, the young woman that she will become. It's just, so delightful, and such a lesson for us. Just amazing.
And she wanted me to play with her, and my youngest brother had driven up from Knoxville to spend a little bit of time with my dad. So Michael said he would keep Aria there until they came and got her, and for me to go ahead and go be with my brother and my dad at the rehab center. And she was like, no, I want you to play. And Michael says, well, you probably, it would be nice if you told Nene that it would be okay for her to go see her brother and her dad. And she looked at me and she goes, you go see your brother and your dad. I mean, she just shifted so quickly and easily.
Gave up the goal.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Pretty sweet. We're blessed.
So come on, somebody, ask a question.
And tell us what your blessing is. What's your share? What's happening for you as we close out the year? And how can we support you? And perhaps if there's no conversation to be had, we're actually going to get in the car and go over to see Jeannie's dad at the rehab center. He's come out of a hospital. And unfortunately, and if everybody would, we'd appreciate you holding the space for him. When he left here, because all three of us had COVID, we couldn't take him to the hospital. And there was a nurse here, and she suggested calling 911. So they took him by ambulance, but he walked, from his bed up the steps to the deck to get on the gurney to be taken to the hospital. And unfortunately now he didn't get, it seems, the kind of attention that would really be warranted in terms of getting him up and moving around. And so he's unable to stand on his own now, unable to get up. And, of course, we're not equipped or trained to be able to handle him if he can't ambulate. So we're holding space that the rehab centers will be able to get him back on his feet and back going. One of the things he loves to do is beat us at dominoes. That's kind of our morning routine, is to eat breakfast and play dominoes with him, or oftentimes in the evening we'll do that. So we're going to take a set of dominoes over and hang out with him and play dominoes and see if we can get his mind stimulated and acclimated and ready to get his body moving in a little better way so that he'll be able to come home and carry on. So if you'd hold the space for us in that regard, that would be deeply, deeply appreciated. And if you use energy to tap into someone to send that love, his name is James Morris. And so if you just hold that space, we'd be appreciative. And if there are no hands up, there is no dialogue, then I'm going to say that we appreciate you being here. We hold space for you to have the best year yet of your eternal life. And we'll look forward to being with you tomorrow. Blessings.